Good evening and welcome to Dog Talk. I'm Dan Camilleri.
And I'm Laura Killip. We'd like to start by thanking Enduro for their ongoing support in bringing you our live weekly Q&A. Tonight we're fortunate enough to be speaking with Dayne and Nikki West from DW Rural.
Dayne and Nikki will be picking who they believe has asked the best question of the night, and they will win a bag of Enduro high-energy food for working dogs with real kangaroo meat.
How are yous?
Good, mate.
Yeah, good, thanks. Better than Daniel, I can imagine, because he just forgot to put his laptop on charge. And it has about 5% battery.
Yeah, nice.
It's all right, I'm all over it.
I thought we were going to be the ones that would do something like that.
No, only Daniel.
Hey, you got to keep everyone on their toes, all right? There we go, cooking with gas now. Talking about gas, you guys had a pretty warm day.
Yeah, mate, yeah. Only had a short little one, but it was smack in the middle of the day when we got there and got set up and knocked them over.
Nikki sent a couple of Snapchats out after having a swim to cool off.
Oh, a little one on your back while you're doing that. Yeah, it's pretty hot today.
Trying to pay it off for sweat, I believe.
Yeah.
Nah, that's cool. Guys, you want to tell us a little bit about yourselves, what you do, where you're from, how you got into it?
Yeah, mate, yeah. Well, I mean, I'm fifth generation shearing off the farm just north of Dubbo here. We're based about 5 k's from Dubbo now on a little acreage, and got into dogs myself through being on the farm. And young fella, had my first dog at about 5 years of age and went through and always strived. I guess I love my stock. My brother was more the farmer, and my father, he loves ploughing up that dirt. So I was the one that was chasing the sheep around. And I know I always strived. The old grandfather, he had the collie dog with the leg up in the collar and telling it to go back off the back of the ute and get up at the same time. And I always thought there's something better. So that's what drove me to it. Started shearing. I was the only one out of all the cousins to shear. So I don't know if I lacked a little bit in the IQ section or something. But I went. Been fortunate enough to travel the world doing the shearing. That's seen a lot of guys with dogs. That I think my first real experience when I was in my early 20s and going over to Scotland, and I saw these guys with the dogs up on the hill and whistling and stuff. I was like, wow, like I'd love to do that stuff. Still getting there for that level, but yeah, no, just absolutely love like playing with the dogs, like and then the shearing side of things. We 8 years ago started up the contracting with the shearing contracting, and then just under 3 years now we've been doing the dipping as well with the landmarking, jetting, bit of labour hire and that sort of thing as well there to just really bring it all in.
And how old were you when you got into shearing?
Shearing, never had an interest at all when shearing rocked up until I was about 17 and 9 months, and I just become the school captain, and there was a shearing school, Christian school. Walked in and said to the principal, I think I might go and do this shearing school. He asked me, he sat me down and he said, is this going to be a good life decision, young man? And I went away and done it anyway, and here I am. So, no. Yeah, and ever since I look back, I thought about doing it just for a year or two and then going to university, but it's been good to me. I've met a lot of great people, a lot of like-minded people, and I wouldn't change it for the world. Pretty tough at the moment, I will admit, in the current landscape that we're dealing with shearers and the shortage of shearers and shed staff. But yeah, no, we still enjoy the challenge, and it ties in really well with what we're doing at the moment. We've got quarters here for the staff on the place. It's like a little oasis for them. They're out in the bush, and then they're only 5 k's and they're back in town to get what they need. So it works really well. Yeah, and then
actually we'll touch a bit more on that in a sec. Yeah, Nikki, tell us. Well, you definitely batting Merrins here, Dayne. So Nikki, tell us a bit about yourself.
I'm originally from Penrith, so and I've got family out in Wellington that I used to go and visit sort of every school holidays. Mum and Dad used to ship us to the farm, so I was really fortunate. We got the best of both worlds. We got to live pretty much in the city, and then every 10 weeks we were on the farm, and that was it. And then the school Christmas holidays we were there for the 6 weeks as well. But my uncle had a lot of cattle and goats. He did have sheep, but he went straight into cattle and goats. So how I got out this way to Dubbo was through my uncle, where I had cattle and wanted to move out there rather than being in the city and wanted a bit of space. So I've always sort of had dogs. I've always done a lot of obedience training with dogs and things like that. And I used to love watching, my uncle work his dogs and things like that. So that was somewhere I always said I wanted to be and wanted to do, and then ended up moving out here a bit quicker when I met this one here. And and then sort of it just kind of spiraled from there, really. Like I'm actually a florist by trade and also a primary school teacher. So
Yeah.
a bit of a flip on its head, and then I just started going out. I'd never been in shearing sheds and things like that, and then I started seeing, working stock, and Dayne had a few dogs as well, and then I met a few people that had working dogs, and I just loved. That was it. I was in. I was hooked. So then I sort of left, teaching floristry at TAFE and things like that, and started really delving right into the business. And then we bought the dipping and jetting and that side of the business, and started getting a few dogs. And I started working a few older dogs, and the addiction, it's real.
Definitely.
So how did you two guys meet?
I was buying a house. I brought a $500,000 house that was double the value of the house I was currently living in for the shearers' quarters at the time, and walked through the door, and there she was.
So I'd come up from Sydney to work with my uncle on the farm, and they had a mutual friend, and I went up to help him tidy up this house that he'd sold, and sure enough, Mr. Dayne had walked in, and pretty much.
That was the end of it. I saw her, and that was where it went, and I think we
bought a house and came with a girl.
That's the one, pretty much, yeah.
Mind you, he sat there and watched us work and tidy it up. But anyway, and then we sort of met again down at the Sydney Royal Easter Show. I'd taken my uncle there, and Dayne did, he was doing their shearing demos and things like that, and then we sort of met there, and just up I went and moved to Dubbo from Penrith.
Crazy.
That's cool. Just 5 hours trip up the road. It's not too bad. And Dayne, just talking about, you touched on shearing again there, Nikki. You mentioned earlier, Dayne, that shearing's taking you right around the world. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, mate. Again, I just striving to be better. I had the opportunity when I was 19. A couple of mates said, "Why don't we go to Queenstown and do a bit of skiing?" I thought, well, that's the best shearers in the world over there. Like, I hate to admit it, but it is what it is, right? And I went over there, and I spent 6 months over there till the end of the year, and actually went back the following year and learnt so much. And I've done about 4 or 5 trips over to New Zealand now. The UK, like I said, I went on a short trip with a couple of mates up into Canada and down into America, doing the Calgary Stampede, like just experiencing those sheep just more in a show competition side of things. That was pretty cool. Just until recently, I was 8 years, I was the chair for New South Wales Sports Shear, been affiliated and a part of that for a couple of decades now, and really passionate about the sports shearing scene. You'll see us at Oberon in a couple of weeks for the speed shear over there, where they've got a massive amount of prize pool there for the speed shear, and do all the commentary for that.
We probably hear you before we see you, right?
Mm.
Yeah. And mate, it's pretty cool. Like, it is what you make of it, right? Like anything, but through that network on the sports shear side of things, and learning about quality and putting quality and speed together, taking that back out into the workplace, and then trying to strive to be better. It's a pretty cool environment to be in. Yeah.
And hard doing job, like you mentioned earlier, where shearing is at the moment, and hard to get people. I mean, that's because it's such a labour-intensive job. Mate,
it's just the perfect storm. It's the perfect storm. We've had one of the worst droughts in a 3-year consecutive drought from 17 to 19. We lost the older generation, then we lost the younger generation. I know a contractor that was 40 years in the game said to me, "I think we've got to forget about the younger generation and focus on what we got." Well, that created a big gap. And then we've had an explosion of sheep when the drought broke from WA come over. We've had COVID, where we couldn't get anyone to go through any state, let alone from over the country. So the perfect storm just happened, mate, and we were still recovering. So it's going to take another year or two for it to really stabilise, and we'll probably be in another drought, and all the sheep will be gone, so it won't matter. But like the way I see it, it'll be a couple of years.
And how do you go how do you think we go about finding shearers?
Mate,
Do we have to create them? Like, where do you think it's?
We've had some success with coming from the coast. I know a lot of other contractors much bigger than us have had success with the school system. So going and talking to career advisors, and we've had a couple of good results there, getting the more tactile students out that probably this is where they need to be until they find themselves at the very least. And it's a great job for them to burn a bit of energy. So pulling them out of those school systems. Down there in Sydney, we've got a couple of guys that one of our learners, he's going really well, and his wife, they've just had a little bub there last week. But
congratulations.
12 months ago, they come up from over there and going really well. So I think we just got to keep getting the word out there that it is a great industry. Some of the workplaces need to come into the 21st century.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a real opportunity at the moment. We're playing things just a little bit different ourselves. We're looking to roll out a bonus incentive type system where our staff can be paid bonuses and reward them for the right behaviour and alleviating pain points from our clients. So it's a premium. It comes with a premium price tag, but we're already seeing great results. So,
Definitely.
And our business is really built on our staff, and they're such a big part of it. So rewarding, good behaviour and offering a quality service is sort of where our goal is to really be there. Yeah.
And Nikki, earlier you mentioned about the dipping and crutching business, and you've been doing that for a few years. How'd that come about?
With the dipping side of things, well, actually, Dayne had. How did you find out about the dipping side of things?
Mate, I was driving home and down at the golf course here, and I'd heard a lot about Jamie Barclay, and I saw him pull up on the side of the road. We were in the middle of the drought at the end of 19, and I'm thinking, how can I get more work from my staff? And it's always about cross-integration, right? And I went and met him, introduced who I was, spoke a bit about things and said, mate, love to sort of work in with you if any of your clients need a shearing team. And he just mentioned that he might be selling his landmarking run, which had a lot of southern work in it. Well, that really was attractive, and we spoke about that in the new year. We agreed on terms on that, and then I said, if you ever want to sell the rest, no, it'll be 3 years before I look at doing that, he said. A month later, he had a heap of sheep in a feed lot, and he's rang me up. He said, on Australia Day, you want to buy the rest? And, yep, no, thanks, mate, we'll do that.
Yeah.
So it just all went from there, and then COVID hit, and it took us a bit longer to get things squared away. I think it was later that year. But, that's literally how it happened, just that stopping and introducing yourself. Simple as sitting on the side of the road.
Which, mind you, was a big sort of a big decision to make, really, like when we're in the peak of a drought and we didn't know the drought was going to end, and what's sort of going to happen. And we just took that leap of faith and off we went and never looked back.
Yeah, it's worked out well for you.
Yeah.
I just lost what question I was going to ask then. Sorry.
You're all right. Do you want to go one of those ones?
Yeah. There's a question here from Matt Cummings. He's asked, you've only been dipping for just under 3 years. Who's been some of the biggest influences when working with your dogs on the dip?
God, we actually talked about this today because we're actually talking to Daniel Pumper the other day about what, dogs and things.
Sorry about that.
And he sort of said, you guys are really lucky, which we're very fortunate because we travel pretty much all of New South Wales and we do a few jobs in South Australia. We have the opportunity to meet so many different people, and Dayne and I are really open-minded people, and we're, your cup's always half full. You can always learn more, and you can always, pick things from different people. So there's so many people we've met along the way, and so many people helping and just offering advice or, heaps. Who would you say?
Yeah, I mean, the trialling world's been pretty cool. There's been a lot there. Matty Sherwood and Benny Costa doing their landmarking and dipping and things. You're always learning little bits and bobs when you're going back there each year. We were with Michael Johnson there just before Christmas. That was so cool. Like he spent half a day with the staff and just really, really gave his time to work with a couple of our girls that we had there on just pressure and release, not even using their dogs, but then being able to bring the dog into that as well. I know George Pickles, he's been a real mentor to us just more of recent times. Like he's he's just selling a business over in South Australia and coming back to spend a bit more time with us. And we're really fortunate to have a guy with his knowledge. He's had 3 or 4 businesses in his career and as a stockman. And some of the things that he talks to us about, we've done some professional development with our staff, and we're very big on trying to get anywhere from 3 to 5 different courses. So last year, lean management was one of the things we did, where we brought a business coach in and spent a day with the staff on what lean's about. And it's about simplicity of systems and having everything structured so it's clear and documented for the staff. Well, George come in not the week after, was the first time he worked with us, and he's talking about McDonald's and how 15-year-olds can run McDonald's. And I was just like,
yeah,
a business coach, I could have had you. It was just right up our alley, and it's just cool to have somebody like that in your corner, like just working away. And he holds us accountable. That first week, I had the flu, I was sweating, I didn't want to be there. Everything that could go wrong is going wrong, and George is just driving it into me. I've just got to take it. It's like what I learned last week. I don't want to be here, but I'm learning. And ever since that, like, he's also shown us a bit of empathy. So he's probably been one of the keys, I reckon. Like, to be totally honest, like he's had a pretty big impact on us. And but it's like Nikki said there at the start of that question. So many people, like, and just the general grazier that you'll meet, and they'll just say that one little thing, and it hits the point. Like with a dog, or I've had a truck driver from Forbes that spoke to me right when we started about having a variety of dogs and having his softer dogs that he brings out first and earn the trust of the client, and then he might bring those harder dogs out when it's a bit hotter, and things like that really resonated and have been put us in good stead as the business has developed and as people get to know us in the transition, and now as we're established in what we do. Yeah.
And same, not only just the client side of things, but also the staff. So we've had some, like with the dipping side of things and the jetting, we've been really fortunate to have some really good stockmen. And I'm usually down the bottom pushing up, so they're the ones that I'm, soaking up all the knowledge I can. We had
Jackie Nolan.
Yeah, Jock Nolan did a season with us on the dip, and he didn't really need me down there at all. He could do it all himself. And then we had, Kane Flanagan. He's a brilliant stockman, and he's got a lot of passion and time. I've learned a lot from him, so much from him. Even after a massive day of dipping, he's still managed to come down the back training yards with me and show me something. So I'm really grateful for him. Carly O'Leary, she's another one that's worked a fair bit with us, and she, beautiful stockman and got beautiful dogs, and just has a really nice training, techniques that she uses. And so we've had so many stockmen, and we've had like jobs that we go to. We have people in the area, that trial, that have come and worked in with us as well to show us a few things and give their dogs a crack on the dip. And it's a lot of fun. We have some tough days, but it's a lot of fun.
And you've mentioned there, you touched on it, like with George and Michael giving feedback, and you actually mentioned the business coach there. There's actually another question here from Matt. I can't read it, Laurie.
He's asking, you virtually answered it anyway, about, do you think you could gain benefits by investing in formal training for your staff to handle stock with dogs, e.g. schools and workshops? But I think you've well and truly answered it. And saying that, who is there any that you've, really seen? Because I know you've done a few of them, that you've seen your staff just soak in the information and change after that school?
Yeah, Michael wasn't a school. It was just an opportunity because we were there getting. But Jakey Nowlan, when he came and done the one up here, like there was some staff that really resonated. They weren't actually staff at the time, and there was a couple of clients that we had come along and had changed their way of thinking. Who was the other one that we had? We did
by, I don't know how, coincidence, we went to the Geary Golden Collar, and we'd met a fella that was there visiting his partner, and he was from Canada. And he is from Blackheart Canine. So they do all bomb squad dogs, like all the army dogs over there in Canada. And he came and did a 2-day workshop with us. And then a few weeks later, we all had to come back and show what we did. And it's amazing how their training techniques, are used all over the world, and it doesn't matter sort of what work your dog's in, but it's how to communicate with your dog. So we had him with our staff, and he was phenomenal. They're a little bit different in the sense of that, it's very black and white how they train. And then we had another really good friend of ours from Sydney, Demetrius, from Optimal Canine Training. So he's in protection dogs, and he come and did
he's done twice now.
Yeah, twice we've had him. He did like a full day of just theory, so on your training techniques, and we had a fair few staff, didn't we? And then we did sort of a follow-up school, and then we're actually just in the process of organising another follow-up, because there's a lot to take in when you just do it in a day. But yeah, we've done a heap of schools, and the staff have just absolutely run with it. They've really enjoyed it. So we try and balance, I suppose, with both not only understanding how to train a dog and communicate with the dog, but then having, people like Michael on the job helping teach the stock side.
How like obviously you mentioned back when you were younger doing a lot of obedience, and then these couple of gentlemen you've met now doing stuff. How do you find then you have people like Michael who are fantastic stockmen, that balance of and I'll comment on it because I know a little bit about both worlds, where letting go of that control, where those dog trainers don't like letting go of that control.
It's really interesting actually, because we had Dimmy come out, and when they give their dog a command, that dog has to sit in that command. They don't actually, what they like, they don't teach a stay. They have to stay in that command until they give a release command, right? So whereas like we sort of have to let them do their natural. Like I don't want a robot dog that sits there and just looks at me every 5 seconds for what am I doing next? Like I don't have time for that. So we had Dimmy come out, and I showed him a few things. He's like, didn't you tell that dog to stop? I said, yeah, but then that sheep went to get away, and then the dog had to cover and bring it back. He's like, yeah, but you didn't tell it to. Yeah, but that's the natural of what we want them to do. Yes, they're, obedient, but there's a really fine line of obedience and then the natural and not having them robotic. Yeah, so he struggled a little bit at first. He was like, that dog moved and, you didn't ask it to. But, yeah, no, he's doing it, and he's been doing a little bit more with us, and yeah, they struggle to see that, like just let them, do their thing as well.
And how have
in doing that, Nikki's probably got more control.
And how have those techniques from those handlers changed from when you were doing obedience before?
Oh, geez.
I might help you out a bit here.
Yeah.
Your obedience was anything more like, come on, used to be a lot of yank and crank.
Mm-hmm.
See, mine's had always been a little bit
a lot now.
Like, so I never really had working dogs as a kid, right? So I always had like pets and things, and I used to help friends, train dogs with obedience, and I used to use, like different levels of reward and, food and treats or balls and tugs or whatever. And then I came out into the rural world where it was very, very different, and, training could be very harsh on dogs and a lot of pressure on dogs, and just, a lot of people would say to me, oh, what do you want, a bag of treats for? What are you going to do? Take that on the buggy and, give that to them? Well, no, it's like, it's a level of reward, like they're not going to want treats when there's sheep. Your sheep is your optimal reward. You're just teaching a skill. So, yeah, like trying to bring that side into the working dog, because I never really had that sort of harsh, really pressurized training. I've always done like build up with levels of reward and release, and then whereas you were sort of a bit old school to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah, and that, like yourself, Dan, it's all about that drive and understanding the drive of the dog is what they've taught us, and coming from already being conditioned in that old school mentality. I think just challenging it and allowing yourself to Nikki's got a young dog there. She's done all this application with, and the dog knows no fear. It hasn't been squashed. It hasn't been bashed or anything like that. It's been through this process, and it's pretty cool to see the difference in that dog. Whereas to get going quick, we spent probably 10% of what we purchased the business for on dogs. It was quite a substantial figure that we had to flesh out to get those right type of dogs I spoke about, like the softer types and the full-on types, and just so we had a team of dogs to get through a summer, and then we never had a summer until this year. We sort of had 3 summers, and this one's been the actual real one that we needed a volume of dogs. But yeah, but just being able to get all that, and then now we're starting to bring our own pups through and actually train a few more pups and have the time to do that. Before it's just been crash and grab, let's go. Trying to have 5 or 6 dogs that you could send out with staff, like you'd have the dip going and the jetting going, and you'd have a couple of guys that might have 1 or 2 dogs, but they need a team of 6 or 8 to get the job done. So you're just sending them out, and by the time you get that dog back in a couple of weeks or a month's time, you spend another week trying to rein that dog back in. Yeah, like,
probably the biggest thing we've learned, like with you know, these guys that are not from, I suppose, our working dog world, we've learnt, rather than, like, I watch a lot of people and like coming in with pretty much like a blank, you know, slate, and you don't sort of have that perspective of the old and conditioned ways of training. Like, just watching a lot of people do, like, they sort of crush a dog and get that control and get that handle, and that dog's like fearful of them, so they'll do whatever they want, and then they start to bring the dog back up and put them on stock, but they're sort of like, they're working out of fear, right? So whereas these training applications, like, they don't do any corrections on pups, as you would know, for a long time, like, and the corrections are very, very different to what, you know, you might use like on a working dog. But
what I've been using.
Yeah, and like these, like my dog, you know, they're trained and taught to love you and to go through you, and they will do anything they can to get those sheep. And it's, my dogs have no fear of like my hand or, you know, anything. They've never ever done that, and it's incredible, because then rather than crushing the dog to get the control, you're just bringing it up and bringing it up and bringing it up and bringing it up, and then you just get 120%. Like, and they understand, if you got that communication, like you would know with your training that you do, once you've got that communication, it's makes the job a lot more enjoyable.
Speaking of how you guys are working in the heat, things get frustrating at times. How do you keep that positive all that time, especially for those young dogs, especially that dog there that you've brought up like that? That's a challenge in itself, right? Just keeping control of yourself and your frustration.
Yeah, mate, just like I said, we've been fortunate enough that when we bought the business, this is the first summer we've had to deal with heat. So I think it's more the innovation that we've been doing. Like, we started last year, we spent a bit of money on actually getting a leader that had a bit of versatility to it. So we had a dual race, anti-backing options. We only used the top half of that dual race. But we also got a chest bar gate, so we can actually have a pocket. So if sheep are tough, we can tuck a sheep away at the top and they'll draw on. Tougher the sheep are, the more we put of dual race, and they seem to look and run up there. So we're not trying to take the dog out, but we're trying to make it easier for our dog. So we don't expect our dog to run like up a treadmill and pack those sheep right to the top. We actually are allowing our dog just to do their work, and then because we've got enough dogs, we can cycle through the dogs every 20 minutes. If it's cool in the morning, I might have a dog do a 2-hour stint. That same dog might come out in the afternoon and only do 20 minutes. So just really managing the dogs to the day. And then also, if we have to knock off, like we've actually, for the first time in the 3 years we've just about been doing it for, we've actually been knocking off from 2 to 4 o'clock and just having a break.
Yeah, wow.
There's no point pushing it, right? Like we're fortunate enough, the design we've got now, we can quite comfortably do 6,000 to 8,000 sheep on an average day, with staff with limited knowledge on stockmanship, and then they won't even own a dog. But it's not worth blowing them up, the dogs or the sheep, is it? So,
and actually, speaking of, there's some awesome questions here from Matt. He's asked, what do you look for in a communal dog? Example for staff to use. And does this differ much from what you like?
It's a tricky one, isn't it?
Just a biddable dog, mate. Like most of our dogs that are communal, they're biddable, but then a couple of them are a bit ratty. You know, they're that dog that isn't polished in their training or anything, but they get the job done. Like the staff can open the gate, and you can that dog's going to go back and bring them up. Like one thing that George highlighted to us there end of last year that he's always done with his different units that he's used for foot pairing and the likes, is always having the lead up exactly the same. So no matter what yards, just when we turn up there, it's erasing the yards that you're looking at and setting up our design. So dogs are always familiar with that design. When he said that to me, a light bulb went on, and I did it most times, but a lot of times you try and make it's human nature to try and make a shortcut, right? So I'll say pulling 2 panels off because that's going to save me a heap of time. And then you got sheep turning and circling. Dogs are going, what the hell? Why are we coming around a corner? You know, so another one of our clients, he's on low stress stock handling, and he talked a lot about bud boxes. And we went away and had a look at like Kieran Pole down here at Yeovil and the likes that use bud boxes, and that's another game changer. So having all that in your toolkit just makes it so much more enjoyable. And even in the heat, you can get away with you can educate staff on little things like just run half a pen of sheep and they'll actually flow, like little things like that, you know, that just make the job more enjoyable.
Actually, speaking of, and you've touched on farms graziers there, have you noticed a change in the way people handle stock and dogs over the last few years?
Ones that have gone out and done the professional development, generationally, there's still some that are still very much archaic in what they're doing. They've either their yard designs, like they're going and they're getting these fantastic yard designs, and that probably helps with the stock flow. But just understanding lead and follow and understanding timing, that's the biggest thing. Like that's the biggest thing. The beauty of the dip with teaching young staff is you're up the top and you can actually see like a bird's eye view of what they're doing and what they're not doing, whether they're pressure and release or if the sheep have got a big bubble, like when it comes to that presence and they need to step off to actually let those sheep flow, you can see all that. And a lot of our farmers, I've found that we've had staff that have come from the coast with no prior knowledge of how to handle sheep and working off the shoulder, and you can get them going in a week. And you can go to a farmer and there'll be 3 generations there and trying to just get them to understand that. By the end of it, you can usually get them to grasp it, but a lot of the times you'll find that they'll just be in the road because they're just not understanding that they'll either be grabbing too many sheep at once and the sheep will ball up, and then you're trying to find that lead all the time. But just educating them, we're only doing it today with a couple of our clients that are also shearing clients on just running a few less sheep, get that lead. Once the others see that flow, they see the dog come through the gate, it's safe for them to go back through that gate. Just all those real little things. That's something like, I think these schools at Gary White, and I know Dave Motley's another guy that we spoke to last year. We aimed to get him for our staff to do a bit of work with him. It just didn't eventuate. We've spoke with Chris Stapleton this year and Dayne Incher. They're the sort of guys that we'd just love to work with our staff just on that nice, calm, quiet technique that they do with moving their stock around the yard.
And while we're talking about quiet, calm technique, we're going to start talking about your dogs shortly. But how does, or what's your opinion on bark, and how does that affect different types of stock? Because you guys are obviously seeing many different kinds of stock.
Oh, mate, massive. When we first got the dip, I bought a Hunaway off a mate. I was actually, Jamie Barclay needed a Hunaway for one of his clients, and I know a bloke. I rang him up, and he goes, "Well, I only want $1,000." I went, "Done." I kept him, but the erratic thing, and I've still got him. I love him, big dodge, but like just bark, and he'd get to the top, and the race used to be just a blacked out race, and he'd be up there emptying out the cage, and we had some pretty good handlers like Kane Flanagan and that, when, like Nikki said, and there was a few others there with their dogs, and they'd all have a heap of dogs. They'd get these sheep packed up and dodge up there barking, and he wouldn't shut up, he didn't have an off, and all the sheep would just start piling back down the ramp, and the boys was doing their head in, going like this, blowing up at me like, "Shut the dog up." Like he'd be up on the ramp just barking, he'd be just revving, and like
you didn't have a quiet.
Didn't know how to shut up. Whereas this other one, we spent a bit of money a couple of years ago and bought off that Jeremy Grills, the training and handling that he had on him, and he's just got an on and off. And he's a half Hunaway, half Kelpie, and this dog, like, he's that soft dog I bring out to start things up and wind things up and just get a feel for my stock. And he's got that on off. So Dodge is what I call my shit shovel. When things aren't working, I bring Dodge out, and Dodge gets things moving. But triggers the dog that the farmers all say, geez, I like that trigger. Geez, he's nice. Dodge is the one that they're all hanging onto the fence. If you bought him out first, like you need to earn that trust. And and not typically those old blue tag ewes or red tags at the moment, when they come out at about 2 o'clock is when the farmers seem to love to bring the toughest ones through for us. And that's when I'll get Dodge out, you know. And that's when you can and I have got him to a bit better point where we can shut him up. So that makes a huge difference, yeah.
But we have quite a lot of Hunaways now. And it just depends on the stock. There's so many variables to it. You know, sometimes your bark will just ball them, and other times your bark is what moves them, you know. So it's just really reading the day and reading the stock. And then too, like it comes into it, like the stock might run really well in the morning, then it gets hot, they won't run, and your bark is pointless and useless because it's too hot and they don't want to run anyway. So it's really just the thing that we have to do dipping and jetting is just adapt all day, every day. You know, we have to adapt. And that's why we have such a variety of dogs, because it depends on, you know, the situation we're in.
It's getting the staff, the young ones, it's quite comical. I'll get there and I'll be like, mate, remember what I said there this morning? Forget it. It's 2 o'clock now. It's not 8 o'clock.
Forget it.
You know, like you got to be adaptable now. Remember what we were doing there yesterday when about this time? Now we've got to adapt to that. So it's just trying to get them to be flexible in adjusting, because, like, I mean, the sheep are there. They don't really want to run at that time of day, do they? So yeah, trying to get that flexibility going on.
But then some days we might only have, you know, one dog in the cage, and I might have a nice soft dog down the back because I don't need much. And I like an on and off bark. I like them to switch on and switch off and relax on the bottom and just hold enough pressure, and they don't need to be terrorising the staff. I work a lot down the bottom. I don't run the top of the dip. But yeah, it just depends really on the situation where you're at and if the stock are running, if they're not. But the Hunaways, they know how to move sheep. They're brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. And you've both spoken a little bit about your first dog, but do you want to tell us who they were and what breed?
Yeah, I had Darcy and Dally. I named them back then after famous sportsmen. So Darcy, Dally Messenger, like he was back in 1908 from the footy, and then Darcy was like Les Darcy, who was the great boxer back in the 20s and 30s, and he unfortunately got a snake bite or something and he was dead on the chain. And then poor Dally, she ran under the front wheel of the truck. I was only quite young then myself. I think I might have only been 8 or something, and come flying out of the dam, and that was the end of her. But great dogs, and just had a heap of natural ability. You know, they're those sort of dogs that they just did the work, and I just had to put myself in the right spot to open the gate. Really, like, yeah.
What about you, Nikki?
For me, the very first dog I had was a Neapolitan Mastiff, so totally different.
Start small, that's the way.
Pardon?
Start small, that's the way.
Yeah, that's how I roll. So I started off as a Neapolitan Mastiff, actually, and he's still alive today, but he's living with my uncle down in Wellington because he just obviously doesn't fit in our pack of working dogs, and, you know, he's a lovable pet. But my first working dog I actually have, and her name's Amber. So I'm one of those hippies. All my dogs are named after gemstones. There's quite a few. There's some really tricky names, but anyway. And Amber's sort of my first dog. I've really delved right into training and just she's going really, really well in what she's doing. And what's her breeding, Dayne? Amber. She's got a mix of Capri and a bit of Maddie Sherwood's bloodlines, and she's a really cool dog. She came from a fella that used to do like dog tracking.
Yep.
And her parents were used quite a lot for their nose and tracking, and so she's pretty cool.
You're a trader. I thought you'd go after names of flowers, not gems.
No. The gemstones are really cool because I pick it depending on either their colour or their nature or their personality. I'm really picky. Like I like a nice.
I can just see Dayne laughing at you in the background. I'm really sorry.
He bought me the other week, a couple of months ago. We come home from dipping. Well, I came home early, And Dayne was up me to go and check the pups down because we had a litter of pups. He's like, go and check these pups, go and check these pups. I'm like, oh, they're fine, don't worry. Stuck my dogs in the orchard and let them have a run around and play. And he's ringing me every 5 seconds, go and check these pups. Anyway, I go down the orchard and have a look. And there's a big birthday card, well, like just a card pinned to this cage. And it's got this little black pup in there. And I rang him and I was probably, fuming. I was red-faced, like, whose dog is this? Why is there a dog in here? And then I read the card, and it was a forgotten anniversary and happy birthday forgotten present as well. Here's your first Hunaway pup. And he named him, what did you name him? Hoss. And I was like, Hoss, like, are you supposed to, like, no. And so I ended up naming him Onyx, which is a black gemstone, and it represents strength. And this little pup is a really cool, strong character, but he's, like, calm. So, I mean, if you're into gemstones and things like that, each dog of mine will represent a different energy, and it's pretty cool how much they reflect that. So you can call
I go as deep as Tiny, and then the daughter is Shorty.
It's got meaning. I love it. Most of mine is named after
Disney characters.
Yeah.
I met a lady that does 3-sheep trialing that names all of her dogs after alcohol. So she'd be running out there going tequila, and she's pretty cool.
That's
cool.
Oh, I've just had an absolute stroke. There's another gentleman in the 3-sheep, Paul O'Kane, and all his dogs are named after like famous people. It's pretty cool as well.
Well, I think it's really cool when you do sorts of things like that. Yeah.
And you're touching on bloodlines there. There's another, Matt's on an absolute roll here. Do you want to grab that one, Laura?
He's asked, have you guys found some lines of dogs that you like, and is there a one-size-fits-all that you would like to bring in the future of your, like, with your work and everything?
Yeah, Sammy Amos's dogs, like, we seem to be getting a good result with them. They still got a bit of the Barclay, and Jamie done a great job with his dogs for this sort of thing. Like, they've got a big heart, and you lock them away and they come back out roaring again. We've got a couple of Sammy's older dogs, and the stuff that we've bred just recently. One of them, Tommy Lewis, sold on Block. We've got a couple of pups on the ground from him that are showing a bit of good stuff for what we do. Haven't got much for the outside, but we're not doing much of that at the moment. So we do adjust a few sheep and lease them and stuff like that. So we do need a bit of outside work, but only got 2 or 3 dogs that do that for us. And we're not up in the hills or anything. So no, the Amos stuff seems to be working for us at the moment.
Yeah. The one size fits all, I don't think there really is.
No, we're just like Nikki said before, a couple of Hunaways and a couple of Kelpies just to mix it up, and depending on the sheep, whether we have some. Today I only brought out 1 Hunaway out of the 5 and the rest stayed in the cage. We just didn't leave them.
And you mentioned about having different styles of dogs and some softer dogs. Have you individually, like between each of you, have you got a preferred style of dog that you actually do admire more? Oh, here we go. Nikki's got one. I can see. Look at the big smile.
He does. We're like total opposites. But that's why I think we work really well together. Dayne is usually at the top of the dip, and I'm down the bottom, and we do have very different dogs. And they work well together.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do. They sort of complement each other. I might have a little bit softer. Actually, no, not sort of, but not really. But
yeah, I've got a bit of both, Dan. Like I said there before to that question, I mean, I've got harder Hunaways just off the chain like Dodge, and then I've got Trigger that's that nice soft that you have to rev him up and bring him through his gears, Then we've got the same with the Amos stuff that likes to sit off at the back there, but then when you call it comes roaring up over the top, and then there's a couple of little Coogee Trooper there. She just loves to just sort of do the same, but she won't really back, but farmers love her because she's sitting there off the back and doesn't sort of chastise or anything like that either. So just having the different options to pull them out. I when we first started, I just seemed to be picking, didn't matter what it was, Hunaway or otherwise, I just seemed to be full noise dogs, but starting to get dogs that are a bit more softer and blending them back through, mainly because of what we've changed, right? We've changed that dip. We don't need to hold as much pressure on those stock up that ramp. We can let the stock relax. We can actually let the stock spread out, and they'll still race up in there just as quick as when you had them on those big wide races.
Yeah.
And talking about like your kelpies, obviously, you know, like a lot of lines and whatnot. But where are your Hunaways coming from?
They, I mean, we haven't imported anything from New Zealand, but recently we just started talking to a couple of different guys over there. Barrett Parker, fortunate enough that he gave me a Hunaway, and I just tracked down only last week actually where he come from and had a yarn to them over there. And yeah, love to. I really like that dog. He's nice and free backing. He's 6-year-old, but this dog's Barrett's got a beautiful control on him, but you can wind him right up as well. Yeah, so yeah, loving that. We've got another one there. I've brought the father of this pup that I give Nikki, and he's really well bred. He's still very young in the mind. He's 2-year-old and just still got so much like to sort of bring him on yet. But we think we can. But he's like he's my big seeing eye dog. He's like, it looks like a big Labrador, an overgrown Labrador, and I'd love to take him down George Street one day with a pair of glasses on.
We found with the like, and we have more kelpies than we do Hunaways, but we find, I don't know, just the nature of the Hunaways. Like all of our Hunaways are fantastic with our daughter. Like they're so biddable. They just want to work for you. They're in whatever you want them to do. They're in. You know, they just, and the motors and the heart in them is awesome. Is what we love. And then, you know, we have the same with our kelpies, but yeah, they're just that next gear up sometimes, aren't they? That you just need, and they're happy to just do it for you all day, every day. You know, even when they come home and they're sore and tired, they'll still go again if you pull them out.
Yeah.
And has there been an influential dog to you guys that you've learnt a lot from individually, like once again?
Yeah, like old Goldie, I only just lost her. She was my old mate. She's 11-year-old.
Yeah, sorry to hear about that too.
Yeah, she's up there on the mantelpiece, and mate, that dog was cool. Like she, from 6 weeks old, she just chased flies. You know, she come with the name. She was the golden one out of the litter, and it was our local stock and station agent. And that dog, like on the board, like traveling around shearing, and she just go and just work for anybody. They open the gate, she put them in type dog. You know, like a bit like those other 2 dogs that I had when I was younger. Just fortunate enough, and right to the end, she. Down there at Yass, when she ended up going on us, she was semi-retired. She just chill out around the house here, and she'd go up the quarters and check on everyone up there. But that last day, yeah, it was like she knew it was going to happen, but she just give us her all. She couldn't even get over the rail, but she was still in there giving it up.
Running up there like a pup, wasn't she?
Oh, I loved it.
Yeah.
And what about you, Nikki?
Probably my uncle's dog. He had an old dog called Red, and he was just a really beautiful natured dog. And I remember my uncle's probably got nearly 5,000 acres down there, and I remember one day he opened the gate and just sent him, and that was it. He didn't say any more commands. They couldn't see the sheep, and the dog just brought back the sheep, just knew what it was doing, and he was just a really beautiful dog, and just the way he worked, yeah, it was really nice. So he's probably good old Red. Was a really good one.
And you go.
Oh, and I was going to say, Dayne just mentioned, unfortunately, about Goldie there up on the mantelpiece. There's a question here from Mark Mangard. Is that trophy behind you for Employee of the Month?
Yeah. No, that was actually for wool handling. National, I won that one. I couldn't win anything shearing, but I won it for wool handling. Yeah.
I feel like Mark and Danny Kerr, we probably should have one just to put a bit
I
of
might relabel that one for them. Yeah.
Actually, I just want to touch on that. You mentioned about having people from the East Coast. So you mentioned like Mark, Danny, Laura here sitting next to me. You guys have opened your home and your work there to a heap of, let's call it inexperienced trialers, even though Danny's a bloody Australian utility champion, right? Still relatively inexperienced. So that's awesome. Like, hats off you. That's great. But what these guys are obviously loving the experience. But what are you taking back from that as well, besides the help?
Different perspective. Like Mark's been pretty cool. He challenges me, keeps me on toes. But what he does for me well is really gets me to think of things differently with his plumbing background. You know, he comes in and because innovation is one of our core values. So we'd love to innovate and try and make things either simpler or just so it's easier for everybody. And he's come up with some really cool, simple, cost-effective ideas that we've implemented a couple we've still yet to get done. But Danny, we haven't been fortunate enough to get Danny yet, but he's actually got his place out here, and in time, he said he'll come on board. And Laura, well, you didn't get much of a crack yet. You only got to go landmarking, but
I've been busy ever since. It's crazy.
We tucked her out. We were like, you can come out here and work your dogs, and no, we didn't do that. But it's been and that's what we said. I think it's been a great thing. Like the trialing is a bit like when I was shearing. I used to put my body through pain and have to go play footy for a season in an area so I could meet all the different growers in that area, and the trialing's been great for that because it's given us access to people like Laura and the likes, and just that fresh perspective. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have all the knowledge to be the one with the right answer, right?
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned core values. What are those core values for you guys?
Yeah, like respect and innovation are two. Accountability. There's a couple that tie in. We actually want to we're just readdressing that at the moment. That there's the 10 things that require zero talent, like being on time, communication, like going through all that. So we try to put that through our vehicles for all our staff as well. And we try to live by that. And then what we're actually doing with this system we're putting together for the shearers, we're trying to actually build that around what our core values are. So that's challenging us to sort of, are our core values still current to what they were 6 years ago?
Yeah, when we did them 6 years ago, we sat down with the staff and asked them what they believe the core values are, and we went back and showed it to clients and things like that. And so we're sort of in that period where we're going to start doing it again. We have new staff that have come on board that we feel that we'd love them to be a part of the bigger picture. So, and what the core value is for them within the business and what they see, and then we also get our clients involved as well with it.
I reckon Mike will have some insightful stuff to tell me there.
I'm sure you'll have a phone call tomorrow.
Well, probably all four of us.
Yeah. Well, I actually have to speak to Mark tomorrow, in all honesty. So I'm
but
sure
the
we can
innovation
discuss
is
them
huge
for you.
for us. The innovation is massive. We are all about thinking outside the box. How can we make it better? How can we change it? Like we had the dip for 3 months of the year out so we could innovate and redesign it and rebuild it to make it easier for staff, easier for dogs, more enjoyable to work on, which was a big leap to take. And innovation is just huge in both of our lives as well as the business and what we do.
Yeah.
Actually, do you want to get that one?
Yeah. Back on the Hunaway topic, John Stars asked, do you find the Hunaway can chug along for longer periods than the Kelpies in the dipping situation because of their style of work?
Yes and no. Like the depends on the dog. Depends on whether it's one of those dogs that's just got itself wound up and always erratic. Like Dodge. Dodge has got a big engine and he'll just keep going. Like he's one of those ones you almost got to manage him. He'll chase a bit of water. Whereas Moose, that Barrack Gibbous, he's one you can shut him down. So he will go for longer. Only that his age is starting to go against him. He's got a bit of that hip dysplasia, so just managing him on that. But look, they got big hearts. So there's a bit of a myth that because they come from New Zealand, they can't handle the heat, but it's not at all the case. Like as long as you've got access to water for them, they might chase a little bit more water, I've noticed, but it's not a big issue. I still find that they can really shift sheep. Like if you can put them in the right spot. Jake Nowlan was the one when he first came with me and he was showing me a few little tricks with Dodge and getting that control and sitting him on the edge of the race and just trying to get him to, rather than just being erratic and running, if you can actually place that dog, they're really effective. Like Jake said to me back then, they will do the work of 5 Kelpies and there's no truer. You may just have to rotate them a little bit more, but that big bark can really, if you can control them, geez, it can move some styles.
And too, like something that we've been doing a little bit more of as well now is like rather than having them, which they're happy to do, is to get in that race. Our dogs absolutely love it, but rather than always having them in there, like with the Hunaways, which is something that Jake showed us, was like just getting them to stand up and they can lean their head over and just bark at the right point so you don't have to run up there. Like that's really effective. In the work, and then they're not having to get in there and get belted up and whatnot. And we always have like that water side of things and going all day, we put, Vitrate in a big water trough next to the dip. And then there's a bucket of it up the top of the dip for the dogs that work the top. We do a lot of like supplements and things for our dogs as well. And we try and give them meat, like so they can have that bit of blood once a fortnight, especially in summer. And then I think it was Benny Costa that got us onto Foresight. We have them on Foresight, and then we get I've had a mental blank with Bodyworks.
Yeah,
she comes and does massage for all of our dogs.
Yeah, Jess Trent Smith. So she's she's just come and done a couple of sessions, and we've had Nath Cave do a couple of sessions as well with his chiro.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, the Hunaways that for this type of work definitely like the right type of. Big Jake that I was saying about that's we see in our dog. He's a massive big animal. Don't ask him to try and back 20 meters. Like he might do 5, but if you put him in the right space for 5, it doesn't sound like much. But he can get stock to untangle and from when they're starting the ball up and turning on each other. Like you don't have to get him to do that 40 meters if he doesn't need to. So.
Absolutely. And actually, I'm glad, Nikki, brought up that supplement stuff. That was actually my next question. I was going to ask about that. And it's great seeing it because those dogs are putting in for you guys every day, right? And it's good to see you guys put them back into your dogs.
We do.
Through your massaging and manipulation and your supplement stuff.
Mate, it's just so like Brady Smith that was from Rosanna. He was working with Nathan. He told me about a dog that was tail turning, and he mentioned it to Nathan, and Nathan said, mate, it's not tail turning because it's got a bad habit, it's tail turning because it's trying to not put weight on that shoulder, that shoulder's proper out. And through a few sessions he actually was able to start working again. That was a Capri Red dog, like was the father. So but it had everything in it, and through those few sessions, and I saw the dog and I knew the dog. I've actually got a pup by that dog here, and that's why I took a couple of mine. Like my main dog, he's a Amos dog, and Brett bred him and took him to a couple of sessions with Nathan. He was doing the same thing, his tail turn, and he throws himself into his work. He gets bashed up that race every day. And through a few sessions with Nathan and Jess, like we're starting to see results where he's had ligaments that were so tight they were like rubber bands in full tension on the inside of his legs. And through them doing a bit of work and a bit of rapid gel and then us continuing the massage process, they're nice and supple and loose. And you can see the dog just when they do it, when they first do that crack on the neck, it was like a shotgun going off. It was scary. And you think, geez, imagine what that dog's going through and why he doesn't want to back when I ask him to do it, right?
Yeah. And it's, I don't know, I think like our dogs are, like we wouldn't be able to dip without them, and you can't jet sheet like the jetting machine that we have. You wouldn't be able to do it without your dogs. So, like we do invest in our staff. Like I believe, your dogs will work every day. They won't argue with you, well, some might, but they turn up every day, and as soon as you open that like cage, they're out and they're in. And so, like, we're really big on the supplements that we give them. We give them meat. We take them for swims, kind of like, your footy players do. They do all the hydrotherapy and things like that. We do quite a lot with them.
Well, it's human nature to try and cut costs, isn't it, and cut corners. Like, we're down at Benny's only there a few weeks ago, and Jess rocked up, and I wanted to do the whole lot. Nikki kept coming to me like, who else do you want done? I said, the whole lot. Just keep going. She's sitting there. You can tell her she's working out how much it's going to be adding up to. I'm like, don't worry about it. Like, we've got to get a benchmark. We've got to know which dogs now. We know there's 6 out of 15. Those ones are the ones that need to go and see Jess on the next round. So, just trying to work out exactly what's going on with them, mate, because they got to have a quality of life too, right? They're stuck in a cage on the road for long trips. So,
they're almost your biggest employees, aren't they?
Mate, they are without doubt.
Yep.
Yeah.
Biggest, I was going to say not in stature, right? Because around. He doesn't going to take the piss out of him anyway. Actually, you mentioned that Capri Red dog there, just out of curiosity. That wasn't a dog called Gus, was it?
It was the one that you had, mate. That's the one. Yeah.
Had a good start to life, that dog.
Never should have sold him.
Did he end up a big dog? He ended up a big frame dog, yeah?
Yeah, he's fine right off now, but it was just interesting, the dog, and through Brett just working him on that feedlot, and he started doing that tail turn, and it wasn't a tight tail turn, it was quite a big arc that he's doing, and through the treatment, he's still doing the odd one, the habits there, but through the management of what they're doing with him, he seems to be getting better. Yeah. So I haven't spoken to Brett for a while about it, but
It's amazing that like someone could just go, "No, that dog's no good," and sack him, and rather than just a little bit of treatment like that, and go, "Oh wow."
Well, to be honest, how many dogs really wouldn't have survived? Like if someone saw them tail turning or doing things like that, or not wanting to back. I mean, how do you not know if they've got a twisted hip or they've pulled a muscle or
Our dog, I had two. I had my main dog. His hips, if you can see, were sort of like that, and they were that far out. It was incredible how far those hips were out, and it was a wonder the dog would even want to back.
Yeah.
Actually, Nathan pulled my dogs up. He judged me once. I think it was Oberon. He pulled me up at the end of the trial, and he actually manipulated one of my dog's back legs after the trial because he pulled me up because that dog's sore. And I was like, I just thought she didn't want to go that way. And he goes, no. And he done exactly what you said. He actually pulled her up and he manipulated her, and she went heaps better after that.
No, Nathan's incredible. He went through everything with us and showed us, and Nathan can just look at a dog and you go, "Oh, can you see that?" We're like, "Well, we didn't, but we can see it now." And he's been amazing. Yeah.
Karen Higgins asks, "Do you guys think the future for your business will tend more towards the Hunaway than the Kelpie?"
No, I don't think so. No, I think having a bit of variety there's definitely what we need. Like I say, days like today, I only pulled the one Hunaway out. I got triggered and a half Hunaway out as well. But I think it comes down to the personality of each dog, right? Not so much the breed. Like there'll be some you could potentially go all Hunaways, yes, if you've got some that have got the same capabilities of what my Kelpies are doing. But the Kelpies are definitely a lot freer with the backing. I've probably only got the one I got off Barrack Moose. That's he's a really nice free dog, but at 6-year-old and all the work he's done, he's tiring. So
yeah. And you guys obviously put a lot of time into training your dogs. Are you doing that on the job? Are you setting time aside? And you guys are pretty busy. Where do you find that time?
Oh, look, Nikki does a lot here. I don't do so much here. Like the goal this year is to try and do more in the off season. In the middle of the year, we've got a set of training yards down the back. Like we're fortunate enough that we invested in them, and so Nikki can spend that time, and staff use them as well. So we encourage our young ones to, because there's a lot of them are living on site, to go down there and work there. But yeah, sometimes if you've got a good job and everything's cruising pretty well, and you're getting on with the farmer and everything, and you've built that trust and that relationship, we can spend a bit more time and slow things down and educate staff and dogs. But our young stuff doesn't get pulled out on the job. It's all at home. Yeah.
So I sort of, if I'm home, so I sort of go on the road for a few weeks with Dayne. We have a van and we take our little one with us. So I'll go on the road for a few weeks and then I'll have a week or two at home. But I believe I train every night, and that may be, bonding. It may be teaching us like off stock or on stock. It just depends. But every night, and something that Jake Nowlan always said to me was that you have to feed your dog, so you may as well train it while you're there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, sometimes, some nights I might not feed my pups in a bowl or whatever. I'll feed them out of my pocket and just be doing, basic sit or bonding, and because that bond is crucial I believe, when you're working as a partnership. And so I'm pretty much training every day and different things.
Working for their dinner.
Yeah, some nights, and then some nights I don't. Some nights it's, it might be on stock. I'll go and get the sheep in. Just depends on the weather.
You guys are pretty open-minded people. Dimmy's asked, when are you adding a Malamute to your team?
Yeah, never. The protection dog.
I don't know what you're missing out on.
I need a double muzzle.
They're not that bad.
They're incredible to watch, those dogs. Like Dimmy from Optimal Canine Training, when he came out and did workshop with us, he brought his dog out. And I think that was the light bulb moment for me when I saw that dog. It didn't matter what its drive was. It absolutely loved him and would do anything he wanted to get to that drive. And I saw that and I was like, I'm going to do that with my working dogs. I'm going to get them to love me and do whatever I want to get to those sheep to make my day more enjoyable. And they're pretty cool dogs. They get a high drive.
Let's not leave the Dutchies out there. Let's add the Dutchie to that as well. So let's go one of each. Why not?
Yeah.
So Nikki, you mentioned there you do a lot of dry training as well off stock. Is that how you put a sit on your pups, or how do you go about that?
Yeah, so I remember the first actual working dog school I went to was Gary White's, and this is when I started learning from the protection dog guys as well. And I said to Gary, "Oh, do you do any dry training?" "No, I do it on stock." And I thought, and Gary's phenomenal. Go to his school if you haven't. It's brilliant, like the structure and what you learn and where your dog's at. But I sort of ventured down the path of dry training, and then when I started really delving into it and learning so many different techniques, and so the guys in New Zealand, I talked to a few guys over there that helped me with training. They do all dry training. So my dogs learn like a recall, a stop, a sit, a lay or a drop, and they can learn an off, like a reverse walk, off stock, or off sheep. Because I don't know, I just find if you're taking a pup in there to teach them a skill set with the highest drive and motivation, then everyone talks about dogs shutting you out. Well, they're not. Like, they are to a degree, but they're just in their highest drive.
Yep, absolutely.
So I believe teaching like a dry without sheep, you can get that precision. The dog understands the skill set. Then you transfer that into different settings. So that way, then you can do it on stock. So you're not actually trying to teach the skill on the stock. You're just teaching it how to do that skill in a different setting, if that makes sense. So you know how like a lot of people will go trialing and they're like, "Oh, my dog will do this at home and it won't do it here." But it's giving that dog the exposure in different settings to understand that even if your sit is on the back lawn, that same command means the same thing if it's up on a water tank, or if it's up on the back of a motorbike, or if it's on the back of the buggy, or if it's in a yard trial setting, or if it's on like a sheep's back. So like I think dry training is like, I mean, you look at the guys in New Zealand and the control and the precision they have on those dogs. I mean, even if you don't need it, it's just that communication, that clear communication with your dog. So you don't have the distraction around.
Do you think that changes on dogs? Like, I know exactly where you're going with this, like with our highest asset motivator, sometimes dogs can lose their head. Like, for example, we've got a Malamute here at the moment, and once we give it our bite pillow, everything else is gone.
Yeah.
But if I can use a ball or food, I can pretty much keep things going. So I use that bite pillow at the end. We're same with our sheep, right? Some of those younger dogs, not all, but some of them, they'll see that sheep and that's it. They've just blown their head and you just can't get through to them, right? So rather than get frustrated, go backwards a couple of steps.
Yeah. And and that too, like while you're doing that dry training, like you're bonding, you're imprinting, and this is something that Jake Nallen taught me, was that you're imprinting on that pup or that dog. You've got this connection with the dog, right? And you've got to work together all day, every day, and you've got to understand each other. And having that dry training takes out all the distraction. That dog learns to sit. I mean, you watch so many dogs, they sit and then they take 4 steps because they just want to get to the sheep. Whereas like you would see on dry training, you teach that sit, it means a full stop or whatever you want it to be, and then transition it onto sheep. I mean, I know people say, oh, you get it quicker on stock, but you're not getting the precision in the command that you're asking the dog when you're doing it, because they take those couple of extra steps because they're just so in high drive. They just want those sheep. Whereas when you've got full control, and you may only want to recall and stop, and that's all you need, but like if you can do it dry training, you can have it so clear to that dog and teach it in different settings. Then you're never arguing.
Yeah. See, what you're saying is it's a different way to put it. You don't take the builder out to build the house without the tools. The dog's already got the tools to do the job. You're just taking it elsewhere, I guess.
Yeah. Dimmy teaches. When Dimmy teaches about how they train like their protection dogs and things, and they have different levels of reward, they call it like a picture. So, like I said before, so in their trials, they might have, so they'll turn up to a trial, and I don't know if you've seen much of it, Dan, but like they might have a board up, holding up, and they'll say, okay, go and stand behind that wall, and here's 10 commands, and I want your dog to do it without seeing you. and they have to go and stand behind that wall, and
the judge will be randomly pointing to the different things, and another judge is assessing whether the dog's actually doing it.
Yeah, so it's trying to communicate with the dog on a skill set, but teaching them how to do it in different pictures and different settings. And
the biggest one that jumping in that I got from Jimmy when he was talking about this stuff was he gave us a few examples, and one was he had a mate that was in their club, and he'd say stop, but he'd lift his eyebrows. He'd stop like this, and Jimmy said, "Right, mate, put your hands over there and tell the dog to stop." And he goes, "Stop," and the dog just started wagging its tail, and he's like, "Shit," he said, it reacts to my eyebrows, not to my whistle. Or, you know, it was a body language thing. It was the pressure thing going.
There's a on YouTube, Lieberg, Michael Ellis explains that really good. He actually says that just your facial expressions, and dogs actually not listening to your command, it's looking at your facial expressions, eyebrows, mouth, nose, all of that, and your word actually means nothing. Your cue obviously just means nothing. So it's amazing because a dog will always take a physical over a verbal action anyway. So hence why they're hiding behind.
And learning that with the applying that back to the dip, then it's actually been a really interesting journey that we've been on for the last 3 years with that. Is like through learning, that was the biggest light bulbs for us from having those guys, and that Ellis as well, Dan, like trying to just learn that stuff. It's been cool.
And too, something that I found was really interesting were from the guys from Blackheart Canine Training. So he sent me a video the other day of like a dog flying on a zip line into a building to go and find bombs and things, which I thought was, that's incredible. They're all working dogs in their own worlds. And when he did some training with us, a funny thing that he said was like, you watch people when they start getting frustrated with a dog, right? And they're not training, but they change the pitch in their voice or their tone or whatever. And a lot of people, how do I explain it? A lot of people, when they're training, they'd say, right, sit. The dog doesn't sit, and then they up it, sit. And then they start getting crankier and crankier. And they're actually teaching the dog that the command is the third one when you're blowing your lid down the paddock, yell and sit, right?
Yeah.
So they're actually teaching the dog to ignore the lead up and just go straight to the blow your lid. And that's the pitch and that's the tone that dog understands as sit, because that's when they've actually enforced the skill, which is really interesting because I've seen that happen so many times where a dog keeps going and it keeps going. And when they get to that, sit down, and then they sit. You're like, well, you've actually taught them to do the command on that one, not the calm one.
And while we're talking about training there, young dogs, when do you guys start apart?
Yeah, 2 days old. Like that's what these guys have been teaching us, is all about that socialization and just just handling that dog like from a couple of days. And, like that. Then just the thing I'm still learning, Dan, that Nikki's probably got more of a grasp on is actually, and you'd be doing it with your training, is understanding the different ages where the big development is. Like, I think it's that 8-9 months is a big one where they're kicking like a teenager, and there's a big brain growth development period there. And I think it was 14 months. I'm just guessing myself. I'm still going to learn these, but understanding that, and then understanding it's okay to put that dog or pup away for a little bit. Like I think that's the big things that I've been learning is I can think back to the numerous dogs I've blown up per se because I didn't understand those principles of where their big development is in the brain. Like
Kane said a really good one. Kane Flanagan, I'm going to drop your name, Kane. He came out dipping at a mate's place, and a friend of ours was, sending his young dog that he didn't really have a good handle on, and absolutely, just getting really frustrated with the dog. And Kane said, well, your dog's in like primary school and you're trying to put it in a university setting. He's like, you've set it up to fail, and that's why it's struggling. You've got to, figure out where your dog's at, if it's in primary school, if it's in kindergarten, or if it's in university. You can't expect, if you've got a 5-year-old kid, you wouldn't go send him into university and think, that'd be right. Yeah. Like it was a really cool way that he put it. Hey, like when you take your dog out and have a look at the setting, go, okay, is this appropriate? Like to make my dog have a good win and a good day.
Yeah.
And I think
you're right, mate, go for it.
I don't think I probably haven't been in it for long enough, like at that level, to really understand where I'm starting a dog. Like, I think we just started that 2 days and worked through those things and get a feel for what that pup can actually handle at the time. And then learning these different stages of development and where to go from there with that pup or that dog. Yeah. And for me, the biggest thing is I'm not afraid to go out and get advice from you, Dan, or even send a dog off to somebody like Grillsy up there at Armidale. He's been awesome. I had a dog that I could probably get inside that dog's head now, but a couple of years ago, he was just frustrating me, and I would have sold him on in a heartbeat, but now he's one of my main dogs, big pride. Like, he sent him up to there not long after I purchased Trigger off Grillsy, and in 2 weeks, that dog come back a different dog, right? Like, so, and then learning what he did so we can apply it ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the 2 days, we start at 2 days because, you know, we give the mum a chance just to bond with their pup and whatnot. And then from 2 days, we start sensory training with the pups.
It's very involved, isn't it?
Yeah, it's quite an addiction.
I can see why it's a full-time job for you.
And speaking of your pups, you mentioned there earlier that you've just started breeding some pups and you got a litter there. What are you looking at it for in your own line?
Mate, like, I think, like, you know, you hear of people that'll, like, put a pup or a dog away to 2 years and then get it going, all that. For me, just I'm time poor as it is, like running multiple different services in the business. So I want something that's going to start early, that I can see that it's the traits that I'm looking for early. Like, I don't want to be having 6 pups that are sort of 10 months old before I can work out that they've actually got what I want. So I'm looking for something that's willing to come in and shows a bit of interest with the sheep, but also something that, like Nikki's saying, is biddable and wants to sort of just enjoy my company as well. Like that's easy. And for me, the biddable is something that's just willing to do what I want to do. It's not off doing its own thing, even though it's got to show that drive. That's what I look for anyway at the moment.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And you guys have touched on trialing a little bit today, and you've had a bit of a crack here and there.
We've done one. We've
done one. I thought you've been around to a few, Nikki.
I go and watch a lot of trials. It's really watching you learn so much from watching. And I said to Dayne, I want to get into trialing. And then we went and did our first bloody trial, and he'd come second and I come 5th. So, but anyway.
Is that the one your mum won?
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go.
Your mum was allergic to that out, I think.
Yeah, your mum beat me.
Yeah.
And what's the buzz? Are you planning to do a couple more? If I know you're time poor, but if you can get around to them, planning on having a few more cracks?
Yeah, mate. No, definitely. That was a goal at the start of this year, to go to a few more. Just to make it work. My main dog that I used for trialing, and I wanted to plan to like Kano give to me, and he's gone and torn his pad, so he's out at the moment. I wanted to go down to Taraga on the weekend, but he was out, so it wasn't no point going. But I love to have a bit more of a crack at it, because, like Nikki said, we really enjoy the community. And I come from that show shearing background. Like, we've always been called show ponies and all that sort of stuff in the shearing game. And I'm sure it's the same for dog trialing. Everyone's like, oh, have a look at those guys. But it's just the like-mindedness, and like Nikki said, like, she's always on Snapchat to a lot of these guys and girls and just getting little bits and tips and tricks off them and stuff like that. And it's invaluable, right? Like, it takes you so much further. It's cool.
Well, like, even just meeting Pip Flower, I met her at the Cowra charity auction trial that was down there. And, I send her videos and things, and she critiques and goes through it with me and helps me, and, like, just so willing to share knowledge. And I think, you can go around people and you can talk dogs and they don't actually get sick of you talking about dogs.
Yeah.
It's a really nice network. And we think too, it's nice for us to be able to give people the opportunity that we meet there as well to come and give their dogs a run in a different setting and, have a bit of fun and work and try dipping, or, it's been really nice.
We're those sick people that, I give her dogs for her birthday and the Christmas and all that. That one, well, that's not enough. You still got to get me something for Christmas. So I got her a collie pup for trialing. I got her a gift voucher to work with Pip Flower for her birthday as well. So It's a really easy thing for me.
I love it. That's cool.
My box looks really colourful at the moment. I've got a Hanaway pup, a Kelpie pup, and a Collie pup. And my Collie pup will be, my paddock in 3 sheep, and my Hanaways for the dip. Like, yeah, it's really cool having such a big variety because it really stops you from just being inside a box.
Yeah.
Your place is going to look like mine soon.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, rainbow team.
Yeah, yeah.
Is there a message you'd like to get out into the livestock industry?
I mean, there's all those generics. You're never too old to learn and all the rest of it, I guess. Like, look at Mangold. But
love it. Awesome.
Rookie of the year. I had to drop that one in. I'm sorry. But I don't know. I just think that, like I said about the shearing, we need to improve workplaces. And a lot of our clients that we go to are seeing some awesome yards and setups out there, but some of them that are out there, we should pack up and not even start dipping. And I guess that's why, like we said, we've got the advantage of having our own 8 or 10 panels, so at least we can try and protect our animals a bit more. But I think the biggest thing, just giving it a go and talking. Like, don't be afraid to ask questions and leave the ego at the door. I know you hear it time and time again, but our young ones that are out there, like there's so many young ones out there. I had a 14-year-old only the other day, and he said, I get paid more at Hungry Jack's than I do here. I said, mate, I got you up here because you were in trouble with the law to get you out of trouble. I shouldn't even be paying you. That's the experience. Yeah. It's the experience. Like, a lot of us used to go, like Nikki says, and you guys have done it too, I'm sure, go and donate your time just to go on a farm and learn, right? And I think that's the biggest message I encourage is if we've got 2 girls, they couldn't get a start on a sheep farm. They were from the dairy at Nowra. They've come out here, they've been with us since September, and one of them now runs the top of the dip for me.
Yeah.
They've still got a lot to learn, but I'll tell you what, like those 2 girls at 20 and 22, holy hell. Like what their attitudes, right? They did it for next to no money compared to what other people would be putting their hand out for, but they're reaping the rewards already, like in what we're paying and the likes. And I think that's the big difference is that attitude. And there's so many young ones, like I said about that other young guy, that they've already got the hand out before they even got the knowledge.
So what advice would you give to anyone that wanted to pursue a career?
Mate, when I was 11 years old, I didn't touch on that probably in my story. I'd sit on the highway at 4 a.m. and wait for a lift to get to the sale yards and work for $36 a day in a feed. And you'd work from bloody 6 in the morning till 8 at night, delivering stock. And at 13 years of age, I was there and I was running the book for the delivery while the agents were off up running the cattle. I was down doing the sheep, and I was getting paid well above what I should have been getting at the time. But they recognised my skill set and recognised that what I was willing to sacrifice. So I think that's the thing. I think we've got to be willing to sacrifice if you want to get that career. And sometimes that financial, like, it's nothing just to gain that knowledge, because that knowledge is everything. We're seeing stockmen out there being paid and rewarded. We're seeing stockmen that's selling dogs. Look at the price of dogs. We're finding people being rewarded, and they're probably still, for the time they put into that dog, they're probably still not getting enough for what that dog really does, in my opinion. You got to gain that knowledge first, don't you? The biggest thing, there's so many people out there that have got a really good handle on their dog as well, but they just lack a little bit in their timing with their stock work, with their pressure and release, or understanding just to continue that flow. So going and being willing to go and spend time on the farm with a Michael Johnson and not expect to get paid for it, that's invaluable knowledge, I believe. Yeah.
Awesome advice.
Yeah,
and is there anyone you'd like to see come on to Dog Talk?
I would really like to see Paul Elliott. I never mentioned him. I think I've mentioned him to you. He's quite a modest guy. He's someone I actually first started going and learning from. He's more in the 3 sheep world, and he was out at Yamundry there. And I used to go out and annoy him every week. I have my little one, and I used to go out there, and he's, all collies, and I'd turn up with all my kelpies. And he would be really interesting. He has some really cool techniques of training, and he has such a love and passion for dogs. Yeah, Paul Elliott.
Beautiful. What about you, Dayne?
Mate, I mean, a couple that we're never gonna, but like Greggy Prince and Toby Lindsay, I'd spent a bit of time, Toby being local here with him when I was younger as well. But obviously, that's never going to happen, but it would have been cool to lock that knowledge away in a platform like what you got here. Would have been a cool thing.
Cool. And it's that time of the night, guys. Was there a question that stood out? And they'll win of a bag of Enduro Hindy food for working dogs with real kangaroo meat?
Well, mate, there was one bloke just kept coming up there, didn't he? Like he just didn't go away.
Indeed, he asked some great questions. That would be Matt Cummings. So, Matt, if you want to flick us a message with your details, mate, name, number, email address, and address, the bag of Enduro coming your way. And you guys, thanks for jumping on tonight. Also, a bag of Enduro coming your way.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
One last question, as always.
You haven't got off that easy yet.
Would you rather fight one duck the size of a horse or 20 horses the size of ducks?
I'd say one duck the size of a horse. If you're a good shot, hit it straight in the head.
What about you, Dayne?
Yeah, I thought about this one. I reckon as long as he's a slow duck, I'll go that one big duck,
Awesome. Guys, thank you very much for getting on tonight. We really appreciate your time.
No, thank you for having us.
Not a problem. And please remember, we learn every day, and the day we stop learning will be a sad one for all of us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.